Contemporary classical music can be understood as belonging to the period that started in the mid-1970s to early 1990s, which includes modernist, postmodern, neoromantic, and pluralist music. However, the term may also be employed in a broader sense to refer to all post-1945 musical forms. Categorization. Generally, contemporary classical music amounts to the modern forms of art music, the post-1945 modern forms of post-tonal music after the death of Anton Webern, and the post-1975 forms of this music. History. Background. At the beginning of the 20th century, composers of classical music were experimenting with an increasingly dissonant pitch language, which sometimes yielded atonal pieces. Following World War I, as a backlash against what they saw as the increasingly exaggerated gestures and formlessness of late Romanticism, certain composers adopted a neoclassic style, which sought to recapture the balanced forms and clearly perceptible thematic processes of earlier styles. After World War II, modernist composers sought to achieve greater levels of control in their composition process. At the same time, conversely, composers also experimented with means of abdicating control, exploring indeterminacy or aleatoric processes in smaller or larger degrees. Technological advances led to the birth of electronic music. Experimentation with tape loops and repetitive textures contributed to the advent of minimalism. Still other composers started exploring the theatrical potential of the musical performance. To some extent, European and the US traditions diverged after World War II. Among the most influential composers in Europe were Pierre Boulez, Luigi Nono, and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. The first and last were both pupils of Olivier Messiaen, an important aesthetic philosophy as well as a group of compositional techniques at this time was serialism, which took as its starting point the compositions of Arnold Schoenberg and Anton Webern, and was also closely related to Le Corbusier's idea of the modular. However, some more traditionally based composers such as Dmitri Shostakovich and Benjamin Britten maintained a tonal style of composition despite the prominent serialist movement. In America, composers like Milton Babbitt, John Cage, Elliott Carter, Henry Cowell, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, George Rochberg, and Roger Sessions formed their own ideas. Some of these composers represented a new methodology of experimental music, which began to question fundamental notions of music such as notation, performance, duration, and repetition, while others fashioned their own extensions of the 12-tone serialism of Schoenberg. Movements. Modernism. Many of the key figures of the high modern movement are alive, or only recently deceased, and there is also still an extremely active core of composers, performers, and listeners who continue to advance the ideas and forms of modernism. Serialism is one of the most important post-war movements among the high modernist schools. Serialism, more specifically named integral or compound serialism, was led by composers such as Pierre Boulez, Bruno Maderna, Luigi Nono, and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen in Europe, and by Milton Babbitt, Donald Martino, Mario Davidovsky, and Charles Wuorinen in the United States. Some of the compositions use an ordered set of several such sets, which may be the basis for the whole composition, while others use unordered sets. The term is also often used for dodecaphony, or 12-tone technique, which is alternatively regarded as the model for integral serialism. Modernist composers active during this period include Scottish composer James Macmillan, Finnish composers Erkki Salmenharra, Henrik Cottodonna, and Magnus Lindberg, Italian composer Franco Donatoni, and English composer Jonathan Harvey. Electronic music, computer music. Between 1975 and 1990, a shift in the paradigm of computer technology had taken place, making electronic music systems affordable and widely accessible. The personal computer had become an essential component of the electronic musician's equipment, superseding analog synthesizers and fulfilling the traditional functions of composition and scoring, synthesis and sound processing, sampling of audio input, and control over external equipment. Spectral music. Postmodernism. Polystylism. Some authors equate polystylism with eclecticism, while others make a sharp distinction. Historicism. Musical historicism, the use of historical materials, structures, styles, techniques, media, conceptual content, etc., whether by a single composer or those associated with a particular school, movement, or period, is evident to varying degrees in minimalism, post-minimalism, world music, and other genres in which tonal traditions have been sustained have undergone a significant revival in recent decades. Some post-minimalist works employ medieval and other genres associated with early music, such as the Oimi Lasso and other Laude of Gavin Bryars. The historicist movement is closely related to the emergence of musicology and the early music revival. A number of historicist composers have been influenced by their intimate familiarity with the instrumental practices of earlier periods. The musical historicism movement has also been stimulated by the formation of such international organizations as the Delian Society and Vox Secularum. Neoromanticism. The vocabulary of extended tonality, which flourished in the late 19th and very early 20th centuries, continues to be used throughout the contemporary period. It never has been considered shocking or controversial in the larger musical world, as has been demonstrated statistically for the United States, at least, where most composers continued working in what has remained throughout this century the mainstream of tonal-oriented composition. Art rock influence. Some composers have emerged since the 1980s who are influenced by art rock. For example, Rhys Chatham. New Simplicity, a movement in Denmark in the late 1960s and another in Germany in the late 70s and early 80s, the former attempting to create more objective, impersonal music, and the latter reacting with a variety of strategies to restore the subjective to composing. Both sought to create music using simple textures. The German New Simplicity's best-known composer is Wolfgang Rihm, who strives for the emotional volatility of late 19th century Romanticism and early 20th century Expressionism, called Die Neue Einfachheit in German. It has also been termed New Romanticism, New Subjectivity, New Inwardness, New Sensuality, New Expressivity, and New Tonality. Styles found in other countries sometimes associated with the German New Simplicity movement include the so-called Holy Minimalism of the Pole Henryk Górecki and the Estonian Arvo Pärt, as well as Englishman John Tavener, who unlike the New Simplicity composers have turned back to medieval and Renaissance models, however, rather than to 19th century Romanticism for inspiration. Important representative works include Symphony No. 3, Symphony of Sorrowful Songs by Górecki, Cantus in Memoriam Benjamin written by Pärt, The Veil of the Temple by Tavener, and Silent Songs by Valentin Silvestre. New Complexity. New complexity is a current within today's European contemporary avant-garde music scene, named in reaction to the New Simplicity. Amongst the candidates suggested for having coined the term are the composer Nigel Osborne, the Belgian musicologist Harry Halbright, and a British-Australian musicologist Richard Toupe, who gave currency to the concept of a movement with his article, Four Facets of the New Complexity. Though often atonal, highly abstract, and dissonant in sound, the new complexity is most readily characterized by the use of techniques which require complex musical notation. This includes extended techniques, microtonality, odd tunings, highly disjunct melodic contour, innovative timbres, complex polyrhythms, unconventional instrumentations, abrupt changes in loudness and intensity, and so on. The diverse group of composers writing in this style includes Richard Barrett, Brian Fernie Howe, Klaus-Stefan Manskoff, James Dillon, Michael Finnessy, James Erber, and Roger Redgate. Minimalism and post-minimalism. Post-minimalism is a movement in painting and sculpture that began in the late 1960s. Developments by medium opera. Notable composers of operas since 1975 include chamber. See also List of contemporary classical ensembles. Choral. Notable choral composers include René Clausen, Carl Jenkins, James Macmillan, Morten Lauridsen, Nico Muhly, Arvo Part, John Rutter, Velho Thomas, Paul Miller, John Tavener, and Eric Whittaker. Concert bands. In recent years, many composers have composed for concert bands. Notable composers include cinema. Contemporary classical music can be heard in film scores such as Stanley Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey and Eyes Wide Shut, both of which used concert music by György Ligeti, and also in Kubrick's The Shining, which used music by both Ligeti and Krzysztof Penderecki. Jean-Luc Godard in Le Chinoise, Nicolas Roeg in Walkabout, and the brothers Key in Absentia used music by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Festivals. The following is an incomplete list of contemporary music festivals. Ars Musica, Brussels, Belgium. Bangkok Marathon. Darmstadter Feriengus. Donaueschingen Festival. Festival at Tempo in Caracas, Venezuela. Gordamus Foundation Music Week in Amsterdam. Huddersfield Contemporary Music Festival. Lucerne Festival in Switzerland. Marta Festival in New York. Music Biennale Zagreb. Musica. Other Minds in San Francisco. Peninsula Arts Contemporary Music Festival. Warsaw Autumn in Poland. George Enescu Festival in Romania. Cabrillo Music Festival in Santa Cruz, California.